Who can stop the Guardians? The White Sox and Rockies, of course.
Subscribe to Selby is Godcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Unbelievable.
I mean, Zach, your theme for the last several weeks is don't try to figure it out. You can't figure it out. There's no way to explain it. And in some ways, in most ways, it's been about the record of the team. But maybe there's also some degree of the only teams that they lose to are really just terrible teams. Be it the White Sox or the Rockies today. The Rockies ending the 9-game winning streak of the Guardians. How do you explain that, sir?
I think my favorite stat of the season is that the only time the Guardians have lost 3 in a row all year is 3 straight against the White Sox, who have the league's worst record. It makes no sense, but it's beautiful.
Not so much in the moment. I mean, I'd seen Twitter burning earlier today over this news. They score 6 runs at Coors Field, though that's not always enough. And, of course, Xavier Curry melted down. I guess you could make a case that, hey, he should have been pulled out of the game, but this is also a game on May 27th. I understand you're not managing every game like this with the anticipation that we got to manage just like a playoff game here. Oh, you're struggling. It's the 4th inning. We got to go to the bullpen here. Well, I also don't, as much as I love this bullpen, and this bullpen has been so much fun, I don't want to continue to burn them out. And I understand in cases like today, you have to either hope that Curry gets out of it or hope that you're facing this Rockies team that you're going to be able to come back against, even if he gives up some runs. So I'm not losing any sleep over leaving Curry in too long in this game.
But you bring up an interesting point, just from the viewing perspective. Doesn't it feel like because of the success, because of the unforeseen success, doesn't it feel like every game is, I don't want to say a playoff game, but it doesn't feel like May. Usually a May game is like, okay, like that's going to happen. You lost in this crushing fashion, or wow, nice win, but wake me up when it matters. Doesn't it feel different? Just because of how surprising the degree to which this team has exceeded expectations?
Well, there's that, and there's also the Royals, which have been almost equally as good. Or if you're looking at run diff going into today, I didn't see what the final of the Royals game was, but they've been right on par, if not better than the Guardians, just matching move for move. And nobody is throwing away the Twins as much as I think many fans would like to. Nobody is throwing away the Twins, so I think you get off to a start like this. Usually you have a game and you say, it's okay. You just won 9 in a row. It's fine. But when everybody else in the best division in baseball is right there with you and making it interesting, I think that's probably where that enters the fray a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. And also, I'm going to just completely go on a tangent here because you mentioned Coors Field and how 6 runs isn't enough. And it got me thinking, the Coors Field, you had those Rockies teams of the 90s when scoring was up across the board anyway for who knows why. Can't fathom a reason. So I decided let's look up some of the Rockies from when offense was at its peak. And I just went to, so that we're going to get to the craziest game ever in a second. But I just randomly scrolled to a week during the 1999 season, and the Rockies had a homestand against the Giants, Marlins, and Cubs. And the Rockies scored 15 runs, then they lost 15-2, then they won 11-10, they won 10-2, they won 8-7, they lost 13-12, they won 10-1, they lost 12-10. I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 consecutive games where at least one team scores at least 8 runs, and it was double-digit runs in 7 of those 8. I mean, that's fun. I thought that's what all the rule changes were supposed to bring.
Well, if you go play at Coors, it's still like playing on Mars. It just, even taking, as simple as taking a fly ball in the outfield, which, as an outfielder, you've done millions of times in your life. For David Fry, far fewer than a million. But him, he's first inning, introduction to Coors Field. Hey, you're going to be running a lot. and you're going to think you got a beat on a ball, and guess what? It's got another 10 feet that you didn't expect in that ball. And then later on, it happens to Will Brennan, who has been an outfielder his entire life, but doesn't have the experience of doing it in Coors Field. We always talk about how difficult it can be to gauge how good a hitter is at Coors Field, Colorado, being a Rockies hitter. And then you look at the splits. It's never as simple to me as, well, if he does this on the road, that's truly who he is. No, I think there's a decompression that needs to happen after you leave Coors Field that takes place over a few days where you have to readjust your body to figure out, oh, this is back to playing baseball on Earth now. That we're not playing in zero gravity like is often described and witnessed at Coors Field. It is a weird environment. They talk about no lead is safe in Boston, right? Fenway Park, that can play kind of odd. Or you get the weird quirks, Yankee Stadium, a ball in to fly ball to right field could be a home run. At Coors Field, my goodness, it always feels like all bets are off there. So emerging with, usually I'm just happy. You emerge with a series victory, I'm cool with that. So that's still in place even though you dropped the first game in Colorado.
May 19th, 1999. Hopefully someone did a oral history of this game 25 years ago last week. The Reds defeated the Rockies at Coors Field 24-12. And there were no runs scored in the final 2 innings. So it was, your casual 24-12 game in the 7th.
What?
6-4 after 1, 11-9 after 4, 18-12 after 6. I mean, that's fun, right? Like, just a blast. Yeah. Denny Nagel started that game for the Reds, and yet couldn't help but be sweet-talked by the dollar signs into eventually signing with the Rockies, where all pitchers go to die.
What has been more fun, though, than watching Jose Ramirez just lean into being Jose here? And he needed to do it because Josh Naylor, who the other side of this if this is spectrum is swinging one way for Jose, it's definitely going the other way for Josh Naylor. And what is truly impressive is Naylor's numbers look awful in the month of May. But he's also graduated to a point where I feel the same with Jose. When Jose goes through a stretch, you're frustrated, you're mad, you can't wait for it to end, but you don't question whether or not it's going to end. With Naylor, I'm the same way. He's going to get equally as hot as he is cold in this month, and he's going to carry the offense, and he has at parts of this season when Jose wasn't quite Jose. That's why you need multiple great hitters within a lineup, because it's rare that they're all going to be tremendous and on the same page, just slugging away at the same time. It's pretty rare that it happens that way, and Jose has picked up the slack, and more so. I mean, he's put himself where we were talking about him just being solid and okay, and he's gotten himself back into, oh, hey, this guy could be back in that MVP conversation by the end of the year because he's capable of doing this sort of thing.
Has he made you care about RBIs again?
RBIs are cool. RBIs are cool again.
It's amazing. I mean, having Stephen Kwan the way he was going, hitting in front of you helps. He was always on base. So even when Ramirez was scuffling, there were run-scoring opportunities to capitalize on. And that hasn't slowed down even with Kwan out, because now Ramirez just keeps hitting himself in, or anyone else who's on base. He's on pace for 45 home runs. I think that, more than anything, should probably silence anyone who thought he was going to have a steep decline, fall off a cliff. That's not happening. The power is really impressive. His career high is 39, but that was 6 years ago. So it's still in there. Even though he hit 24 home runs last year, I mean, he might surpass that by the All-Star break. So that's a really good sign. All the things that make him great should make him really good for a long time. The contact ability, the ability to recognize, pitch recognition and understanding the strike zone. And I mean, you see it. He knows when he chases a pitch he shouldn't. He knows what pitches he can do damage on. It's so much fun reading his body language and observing his reactions to when, like, mid at bat or after an at bat. He doesn't hide a lot. And so then when he gets into one of those grooves, I mean, it's really a treat to watch. And all the, the stats that have been so fun to follow, like the fact that this guy that organization thought he was a utility infielder, Mike Aviles' replacement, could barely struggle to hold the seat warm for Francisco Lindor at shortstop. Came in 2016. Michael Brantley gets hurt, and they're like, hey, you, go to left field. We'll just see what you can do. And now he is closing in on being the number 2 all-time home run king in Cleveland, behind Jim Thome. I mean, he's going to pass Manny Ramirez and Albert Bell probably this season. That's insane. It is absolutely insane to think what he's accomplished the last 8 years. And I just think that the last month, like, I didn't think that he was just going to fall off a cliff. But I didn't know what to expect. I've been wondering what kind of hitter he was going to grow into in his later years. And I thought maybe he could excel as just a guy who leans on that contact ability, that strike zone awareness, and just slap singles and doubles all over the place and hit 310, even if it's with less power. I think he's doing the opposite. I think he's going the other way. But it tells me that, like, this guy's got more MVP caliber seasons in him. And what that ultimately says to me is this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. And I think we can lose sight of that easily. We can take it for granted. We spend so much time talking about how he's underrated and griping that he's underrated when, like, maybe he's not locally. Maybe people do appreciate him, or they're starting to. The guy, I think there's a really realistic chance that he goes into Cooperstown and he's wearing a Cleveland hat. And it's really cool. You just think about how many times you have gotten to witness that. Jim Thome? Is that it? Is anyone else? I mean, CC Sabathia is going to have a Yankees cap on his plaque.
Yeah, he's a treat in that he's so multi-talented, that he beats you in so many ways, that he's been so good at so many different things. When you go to the ballpark, we talked about Naylor when he's going good, how he could be must-see TV. But Jose's must-see in all that he does. And him, later into his career, really taking on the leadership role that goes along with being the best player, that being the guy that when you think of Indians in the past, now Guardians in the past decade, it's Jose Ramirez. And Lindor was there for a while, but it's now clearly Jose. And you just don't see truly great players stay great on the same team forever. It's very rare. I mean, look across the way with the Rockies today. The guy that kicked you around a little bit it's in right field making great plays, but he's been in Colorado forever. How long has he even been there? It seems like a really long time. But Jose Ramirez, when you think of Guardians and you think of the Mount Rushmore of greatest players ever when his career is over, he's going to be in the conversation to be on that Mount Rushmore. That is to go from someone who you couldn't wait to kick his ass out of shortstop so that Lindor could arrive. Lindor gone and Jose stayed. I was thinking about it today. Even if you were to go back to 2016 and think of the 2 third basemen that were in that World Series, Jose Ramirez, Chris Bryant. Imagine telling yourself in 2016, Chris Bryant looks like a great player, right? That Chris Bryant is going to be an afterthought. Colorado, what are you doing giving him that contract? And he looks terrible, and I don't think there's any coming back for him. And then here's Jose, still perennially an MVP caliber player, an all-star. No one questions that. Continues to be one of the best players on the planet, year in, year out. I mean, it is a treat. There's no better way to describe that.
You got the wheels spinning a little now, because now I'm thinking about Mount Rushmores. And it's tough to do in baseball because you have pitchers and hitters, and it's hard to compare. They do such different things. And also, especially with Cleveland's franchise, which has been around since 1901, how am I supposed to compare Jose Ramirez to Nap Lajoie and Tris Speaker and Shoeless Joe Jackson and Addie Joss and Stan Kovaletsky? But I don't know, if we limit it to the last 100 years, I mean, it's who's on that Mount
100,
Rushmore?
I guess. Hey, this is not the off season. That's the perfect time to have this conversation. But
Fine.
I think you need to file that away and into your fantastical brain. Think about that
Someone
when
else
it's
is
time
going
for
to
the
steal
off
the
season.
idea.
Well, you just remember where you heard it first that we were gonna talk about it. We're going to do it. you know the iPhone. We were thinking about making that before they actually did. So you just remember that. And you know what? I'm glad you brought up the body language. I go back a couple of nights ago where Jonathan Rodriguez made the perfect throw to Jimenez, who made the perfect throw, and they get the runner at third base, right? And Jose, we talked about Tito having the proud papa smile that he would often, oh, yeah. And he would just be so happy with something that took place. Jose had that smile, his version of the proud papa smile. And I thought, you know the meme where it shows someone whispering in someone's ear and then the hairs on their arms stand up, they've got goosebumps? For Jose, the goosebumps is watching young players play the game hard and play it with excellent, whatever you want to call it. Just that headiness that he plays the game with.
Just fundamentals.
The strong fundamental play. Yeah, strong fundamental play. That's what gets Jose going.
And it's amazing.
He's just so excited.
You would think he's the most unassuming I mean, he's 5'9", maybe. Small guy. I mean, he chirps a lot, but like, he's not. I don't know. It's weird. Like, he's quiet and he's also chatty at the same time. Like, he's not gonna. I don't know how to describe it.
Like he would be the kind of guy to say, I'm better than Barry Bonds, but also like there's a clear joke behind it, and he doesn't really think those sorts of things, even though he kind of does.
Yeah, which means it's probably not best to aggregate him because you might not know the context. I think he is. I mean, if people knew his personality, I mean, he's a hilarious guy. Like, the stories about him. I wrote a piece right before the 22 playoffs started, just about like everybody's best Jose Ramirez stories, and I actually reread it like a month ago, while I was looking for something about him, and it's just like they don't get old. It's the stuff of legend, and he says things to get a reaction, but no matter what language you're speaking, like, he's got that comedic timing, and at the same time, on the field. Like, the opponent, he would have fit in with the 95 team perfectly. So remember those guys, like Carlos Baerga and Kenny Lofton would say, like, we'd make eye contact with you right before first pitch so that you knew we wanted to rip your hearts out. And that's Jose Ramirez. Like, he wants to destroy your soul. He just wants to absolutely obliterate you. He wants you to regret every decision you've ever made on a baseball field. Like, he's not like, hey, let's have a good game today and let's, may the best team win. No, he wants
We'll swap jerseys after the game or anything like that.
He wants to just ruin you. And, the way he goes about it is by being the most instinctual player I've ever watched. And by always being one step ahead, by always making the right decision. And I think he's developed into a leader. He's had good people along the way, like Mike Napoli, Juan Uribe, Michael Brantley. But his style of leadership is, remember he told us when he goes back home in the offseason, he'd have kids following him around Bani, like he's the mother duck and they're his ducklings. And that's kind of what this reminds me of. Like, in spring training, Davison De Los Santos was just following him around everywhere he went. I've seen Jose Ramirez talk to Esteban Florial a ton, just conversations pregame about approaches and things like that. And then there are also days where he's just being a complete goof, but like guys gravitate toward him. Gabriel Arias has spent so much time just watching him operate before a game. So I think like he's quiet and he picks his spots and he knows the right demeanor to have at the right time. And it's amazing that we're having this conversation just because of how his career started those first few years, how he developed into more of a leader, and more than anything, developed into someone who felt confident in being able to be themselves in the clubhouse, on the field. So it's the guy's a pleasure to watch, pleasure to cover, and it's not too late. Like if you have been sleeping on him, it's okay. You can admit it. Like it's all right. This is a safe space. Like the guy's been an underrated superstar for a long time, and he is giving you a chance to hop on the bandwagon while you still can, because he's clearly not done being an elite player.
Doesn't matter if you've already been sleeping on him or if maybe he caught you on the chin and you just fell asleep. You can still enjoy it. Now, I've been enjoying the fact, what we did complain about with Jose in the first month is the fact that he just was jumping out of his shoes, just trying to make everything happen, and he looked all out of sorts and just being way too aggressive. And that's not Jose. Jose is the king of making you come to him. He somehow will set up pitchers to make him do what he wants them to do. But he wasn't doing that in the first month. And you pointed out all the time in the month of May or in the month of April, he got a 36% chase rate. It was the highest at any point in his career for a single month in chase rate since he became a regular player. And what has happened in the month of May? That's come way down. That's a 27.5%. He's just gotten more patient. Now, of course, when I'm seeing a Josh Naylor, not all of this month, but when you saw what he did in the month of April, that'll settle you down a little bit. You don't feel like, well, if I don't get this done, nobody's going to get it done. Well, that wasn't the case in the first month of the season, but whatever was happening there, it seems he's kind of eradicated that and gotten back to just being the patient guy that lets the pitches come to him or foul off 7 of them before he finally gets that 12th one and he deposits it over the fence. He's just so delightful to watch do that, to just set that pitcher up to finally knock them out, or the shortstop to knock them out, whatever.
He and Naylor are like two ships passing in the night. Imagine if they're ever both rolling at the same time.
Yeah. You thought you got a glimpse of that when they went to the back-to-back home runs with Fry getting in the mix there. And even for Naylor, it was like, ooh, he had like a 5-game stretch where it seemed like he was getting back to doing the demolishing himself, and then he really hasn't been this great this month. But I don't have any questions about whether or not he's going to get there. It's just I can't wait for him to get back, because then the offense, you hope that you catch some of Jose still being red hot, with Naylor being hot, and Fry doing whatever the heck he's doing, and Tyler Freeman actually waking up, and then another guy coming back off the injured. Ooh, this is starting to look fun.
Yeah, Naylor's metrics still look fine. Overall they're really good. But the one thing is like that chase rate. It's trending back toward where it's always been. It was so much better early on in the season, and that's why he was making pitchers come to him, give him exactly what he wanted to smack, and then doing a ton of damage. And the walk rate is still up over all his other seasons. And he's not striking out. It's just, he's not hitting the pitches he can inflict the most damage on. So, but
yeah.
You would look at his metrics, chase rate included, you'd compare them to last year, and you'd say, okay, well, he should still at least be doing what he did last season or something close to it. So I think this precipitous fall over the last few weeks, I think he will rebound. Like his expected numbers are still really good. The hard hit rate's still up over last year. Exit velocity's up quite a bit. So like he's doing a lot of things overall that you would hope he's doing. I think it just snowballs. I think you just fall into a rut. You try so hard to get out of it, especially someone who is prone to chasing pitches like him. I'm sure he's
and can have damage on pitches like that.
Yeah. He'll get hot.
It's kind of a chicken and the egg thing too with the chasing. It's you don't have success, so you start to chase, or are you chasing that makes you not have success? They just kind of go hand in hand. But he's graduated to a point where I don't question if it's going to happen. It's only a question of when. He's proven he's too good of a hitter that you're still going to be there. And the numbers overall are still good, even though they've dropped off, considering where they once were. But I think he's just going to have a stretch where he's going to get equally as hot.
How much does Kwan's imminent return help?
Yeah, speaking of things that give me goosebumps when you whisper them in my ear, the return of Stephen Kwan. And not just Kwan, another guy that this team, hold on. Another guy that this team desperately needs is on the men too, Gavin Williams. And they're both, Kwan has already started the rehab assignment, and we're going to see with Kwan, it's going to continue at Columbus, and Williams is going to start in Columbus this week as well. So I'm wondering, given where this offense has been at, and they've had their ups and downs so far this year, but totality-wise, the offense looks pretty good. The pitching staff, the bullpen, has looked phenomenal. Best bullpen in baseball. That case can be made. Starting staff, the surface numbers are okay, but it always kind of feels like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop on at least a couple of starters in this rotation. It did on Curry today, because below the surface, we're not talking about guys with elite stuff. Anybody's going to win any sort of a velocity challenge more likely than not. But then there's Gavin Williams, that guy that can do that sort of thing, that does have electric stuff when healthy. And this team, if there's one thing that they just look like they're missing, if the playoffs were to start today, doesn't it look like a true front-of-the-rotation playoff, not tested yet, but a guy that's capable of dominating an opposing team? Bybee floats in that territory a lot, and I don't question giving him the ball in a playoff series, but a Gavin Williams looking like Gavin Williams, that really makes me feel better about this team doing damage. But then there's Kwan, also on the men. Who's more important?
I think did you just take Williams' side? That was like 99% Williams explanation, 1% Kwan.
A case, yeah, for Williams there a little bit. I mean, I know it's kind of radio sticky or social media.
If
just
you
say,
could choose
only
Gavin
one can
Williams' return or the Browns get a new color mouth guard, what would you choose?
It's better if you don't play the game. That's always my... Don't take the bait. You get mad at it. You tweet at them, they win. You vote, they win. The only way that they don't win is if you just scroll past it. You take that click-through rate and burn it to the ground.
Would you be okay
but in the spirit of doing that,
with the Guardians and Cavs moving to Siberia and your first 2 children being slaughtered if it meant the Browns could reach the Super Bowl?
Oh, my goodness.
Call in now. It's the answer is Williams. What's the debate here? You need frontline starting
I'm
pitching.
shocked.
Really?
I'm actually a little bit surprised. I thought you would lay out a case for Kwan to be the most important play. I mean,
so
they're both important. That's the thing. They're both important. We're just doing a silly bit here.
The case for Kwan is that Ramirez is not going to remain nuclearly hot. Nuclear? Yeah. Nuclearly. Scorching hot.
You have spent way more time than it. My gosh.
Like, he can't keep up this ridiculous home run pace forever, I don't think. I mean, maybe he can. I don't know. Can we talk about his RBIs for a second? Back to the RBIs. I know you love RBIs. He's got 54 in 54 games. So quick math. 54 and 50. Carry the 1. Minus there. That goes there. He's on pace for 162.
You put that degree to work.
162 RBIs.
A lot of assumptions here. You think they're going to play all 162. There's not going to be some rain out here, or they only play 161 or something silly like that.
When does the Mayan calendar
Or that. Why are we always going to that?
So, Manny Ramirez, franchise record 165 of those things in 1999. Boy, it must have been nice. How many RBIs do you think you would have had if you had peak Kenny Lofton, Omar Vizquel, and Roberto Alomar hitting in front of you?
Me?
Yeah.
Probably none, but...
You don't think you would luck into
I'd put...
bases loaded walk?
I just get hit by a pitch. Please, please, give me one RBI.
Anyway, so Jose Ramirez, very impressive, league-leading 54 ribbies through 54 games. Manny Ramirez through 54 games in 1999 had 68 RBIs. What a season. Just a fun fact for you. The answer is Gavin Williams. Stephen Kwan helps you a few ways. One, it's going to be decision time, right? Estevan Florial would seem like the odd guy out, but there are playing time questions too, because if Kwan's every day in left field, Josh Naylor's every day first base, that leaves David Fry, Will Brennan, and Kyle Manzardo fighting for basically two spots. And so how do you get, I would think you'd want to keep Fry's bat in there as much as possible. And then it's, how do you balance all that? So I think, Brennan has he shows a glimpse or two for a couple days and then he's cold for a few days. I still am not quite seeing enough there. I want to see more of Manzardo. I don't understand how he has not hit a home run yet because the way he was hitting in AAA, and I know there's a big jump, but I just expected him to come up and hit 7 home runs by now. But really, Manzardo seems to be looking a lot more comfortable at the plate over the last 10 days or so. So it's going to be interesting to see how they balance that. And I think it'll also be fun to see Kwan, Jimenez, Ramirez all hitting together at the top of the lineup. Tyler Freeman's done a better job lately. Where do you slot him in the lineup? I think it helps. I mean, it completes some things, and it also applies pressure where I think there needs to be pressure applied. Like Will Brennan, it's time. You got to perform, or they're going to have to trade for somebody. I don't know that there's a quick fix there. And I think you're starting to evaluate here what you might need. And so come trade deadline, do you need a part-time or full-time outfielder? Getting Stephen Kwan back sort of helps speed up the decision-making process, I guess. But the answer is Williams.
I forgot to pay this off. Charlie Blackmon has been in Colorado since 2011. 2011. God, that many years going between the super high altitude, coming back. That means he is what is he, 38? Almost about to be 38. They always talk about, well, if you're in a plane and you're flying above the earth, and actually, technically, if you had a twin, then they would not age at the same rate. I have to figure all the time spent at that altitude, he's not actually 37, 10 months, and 26 days old. His feeling of time has to be different. No? Okay. Well, I thought maybe there was a chance. I do like living in the timeline where Jonathan Rodriguez fits on this team better than the man he replaced. And I also like a couple of nights ago, he had a ball 106.9 off the bat, which, good. Anything over 108, I'm starting to get really excited. Then you go over 110.6, like that too. He already looks like he fits in so much better than Laureano did. And I get Laureano, the veteran. Hey, I even get bringing him back. I think that was a smart move to take that risk. But credit to them. They figured out, hey, we're into May now. He's not doing what he's supposed to do against left-handed pitching. We've got a guy in the minor leagues that we liked him enough to protect him in the Rule 5 draft, which is more than you can say over some of them, like Oscar Gonzalez. We always had this conversation. Well, they didn't protect him. They had a chance to protect Rodriguez before this year, and they did, which should have told us something, and it did. So if you've got him on the 40, you have to answer a question about him. Can he fill this role? I don't know long-term whether or not he will, But I like having Rodriguez more in this spot than I certainly did with Laureano, and it's a benefit of, hey, this is a long-term answer that we're now going to get an answer to. Whether we like the answer or not, it's at least an answer on somebody.
And he's a right-handed bat. So the role makes sense. You know, it's you don't have to force him in the lineup every day. He still fits on this roster when Kwan comes back. I don't know, when would Florial ever play when Kwan comes back? I don't see it. So, yeah, I mean, you can give him opportunities. All of these conversations make me think trade deadline. Because you can't be running experiments like this in August and September if you're in a pennant race. So you got to get your answers now. And I think that's why they made the move when they did to get Rodriguez up here, because you want to get a look at him for the next 2 months before you decide if you have to go get Brandon Guyer 3.0, Jordan Luplow 2.0, Ryan Rayburn 4.0.
Okay, I follow that math. I just want to make sure. Austin Kearns?
5.0.
Marty Cordova.
12.0.
Leaving out the part where when he dove for a ball and broke his wrist, I think. Cordero did. But maybe what is his first time in Cleveland, I think he got injured. I don't know why that's sticking in my brain. He is a member of this list that's in front of me, by the way, not Will Cordero, but Jonathan Rodriguez. It is a list of rest of season projections. And I could just list them. We could do that. That's fine. Maybe it would make you feel better. And we could match up by position. Just all the teams on the schedule coming up.
Did you want to play the schedule game? Is that what you're saying?
So the Rockies, with their third baseman rest of season projections, who would you take? Okay,
but
we're
hold
not
on
going to do that.
No. Hit the music.
Okay.
You have poo-pooed this for weeks. The people have said they want the schedule game. They've got to have the schedule game. The Guardians are 9-1 since the schedule game began. And I said during the schedule game that they would go on this winning streak. So for you to say that people don't want the schedule game, they don't like the music, oh, that's so 2004, wrong sport.
I never said any of these things.
All of those, direct quote.
I love the music. I hated your execution of it. That was always the explanation. But we have to make this known. People love the schedule game. People love the music. I get it. Working over at K&R for years, we would have this soundtrack over all of our pregame shows. I loved it. It's great. What people do not like, and I have been 1,000 times been told over at YouTube. First of all, they don't like me, and I get that. But second of all, they really do not like the dance music, I am told. Yeah, so, hey, this is just one giant experiment, right? We just see what works, what doesn't, what sticks. Schedule game seems to stick. I'm not going to get in the way of that. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. It's fine.
Here's all I know. You got 2 more in Colorado. Go win a series. What a triumphant road trip 5-1 would be. TJ said you couldn't do it. But let's see what they're made of. Because then they come home.
Did you ask me if they could
come
do
home?
it?
Hey, this is my segment. They come home. They get the Nationals.
All right, I'm just going to sit
on
back.
their turf. Friday night. TJ's big birthday. And it's Free Shirt Friday. And they'll be wearing their City Connect uniforms. And the first inning rolls around. Bottom of the first. Someone starting for the Nationals. Steven Strasburg, maybe. And who strolls into the batter's box after exactly 4 weeks off? Steven freaking Kwan. Can you feel it? Because guess what?
Do the rock thing. I got the goosebumps.
The calendar flips to June. Saturday, it's Stephen Kwan Jersey night. You know who I bet loves the schedule game is the Guardians because we just read their promos.
Wait a minute. Did we get baited into this? I think we kind of got baited into this.
Look, all I know,
I was in the middle of doing something.
The rest of this week, you're playing losing teams. Capitalize on it because next week, the big boys come to town. The juggernaut Kansas City Royals. As we all predicted.
No, that's going to be a series to remember. You'll tell your grandkids about it, I'm sure. All right, I could pick whichever rest of season projection I want, whether it's Steamer, whether it's Zips. I went with the bat. So we'll use the bat here. Rest of season projections. I'm going to read off some slash lines here. I'll give you a WRC plus. You tell me who you think that belongs to. We'll start with this one.
We don't have music for this?
This is entering today's game. I don't have music for this one. What should we go with for rest of season projection music?
Something upbeat.
Oddly specific. I don't.
Maybe a ballad?
Okay. We'll think about that. 262, 305, 377 is the slash line. A 95 WRC plus. Again, this is rest of season entering today. These will change slightly based on today's outcome, but not a ton. You want it one more time? Just to say it.
I'm going to say Will Brennan.
We're on the right path. You got it, sir. That is Will Brennan. That is the rest of season projection for Will Brennan over at the BAT, the projection system. Would you, if it's a 262, 305, 377, 95 WRC plus, are you okay with that? Are you seeking an upgrade? Is he being replaced by somebody else? What do you think?
Yeah, I want more. I mean, eventually that's replaced by Chase DeLauder, I think, but I don't know that that's this year. That is the most Will Brennan slash line I've ever heard. I think we should just call that the Will Brennan.
The Will Brennan. Good enough that you don't question his spot on the team. And it's kind of like the carrot on the stick. That's good enough that I'll give him a little bit of time to see if there's a little bit more in there. We'll go below the surface. We'll see about the hard hit rate, what's happening there. I'm not kicking him to the curb over that slash line. But also don't think he's the answer in right field with that slash line either. Okay, how about this man? 244, 316, 418. A 111 WRC plus. 244, 316, 418.
Kyle Manzardo?
Kyle Manzardo is your final answer. It is not Kyle Manzardo. That's David Fry.
316, 418?
David Fry. Now, I think you would probably, considering he's got a WRC plus, it's still over 200 right now. Is he still rocking a 50% on base percentage or close to it? I think we're losing sight of something here. Well, maybe we're not. But what you could lose sight of is you would say 244, 316, 418. That's not very good. 111 WRC plus rest of season. How good has David Fry been that he's a 111? He's projected to be 11% better than a league average hitter for the rest of the season. To me, I find that a little bit encouraging.
Especially because I look at the slash line, I'm like, oh, that's not the David Fry I've come to know over the last 2 months.
Right.
Where's the guy who has a 1,500 OPS against lefties?
Get rid of Mount Rushmore and just put one face. David Fry's. Best in team history. Okay, let's go to this one. 268, 330, 387. That's a 108 WRC plus.
I'm going to go Andres Jimenez.
Not Andres Jimenez. That belongs to Tyler Freeman.
That's pretty good.
I mean, 108 is better than where he's at now. I think it was 102 if I Saw that earlier today. We can talk a little bit about Tyler Freeman because every show is devoted a little bit of time to Tyler Freeman. We were excited about him in the first month. Then he went through like a 2-3 week stretch where we didn't know what sort of hitter he wanted to be. Is he doing a better job of showing us the hitter he wants to be? And is that good enough to be a plus hitter at this level, do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Because you don't want to evaluate someone at their peak or at their lowest valley. You want to take in all sides of it and see what that equates to in the end. But I will keep referring to the fact that this guy was a top prospect, the top prospect in the organization for a little bit. And it was all because of the hit tool. So that's in there. And, the better hitting of late is what I expected all along. We just got to see it more consistently. But he's definitely been, like, as we're evaluating, you've heard rumblings like people asking whether they should send Bo Naylor down to AAA for a little bit. We're talking now about Florial and Rodriguez and Brennan and the shortstop position, certainly. Like, there are a lot of spots still up for grabs, and yet center field with him, he's safer than everybody else I think we just listed, isn't he?
I mean, think about he went through some plus stretches, then he went through a really bad one where it looked like he didn't have much of a plan up there and his confidence seemed shaken. And now he's bounced back to be much better. Not succeeding in the same way as he was in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season. We haven't seen the barrel output and the lots of power or anything like that, but he looks more like a combination of a little bit of that guy and a lot of what he was in the minor leagues. In fact, and he's at 103, by the way, so he's 3% above league average so far in center field. I mean, how can we dismiss that considering the output of offense in center field we've seen over the past several years? But I'll go back to something, and since reading this, I was reminded of it. This has been sticking in my brain for several days. This was from his graduation, didn't read from the Fangraphs page, which is just kind of a couple of sentences on his graduation and where they think he's at. Freeman graduated from prospect status without a clear defensive home, talking about the fact we didn't know where he was going to play. But he's going to make so much contact that it won't matter. He projects as a DJ LeMahieu type of hitter. And the reason why it sticks with me is not because I think he is going to be DJ LeMahieu, but haven't we for the entire season, have we been trying to figure out what is the profile that he needs to be to succeed? And maybe that's the one where he just needs, not that he needs to go be the exact same guy, but how does DJ LeMahieu, how has his career enabled him to have this long, lengthy career where he's been a great hitter? Can you pull bits and pieces out of that with the sort of player that you are to be that? And if he is that, certainly nobody's complaining about that, and he's going to stick in this starting lineup.
Another Rockies tie-in. That's where LeMahieu...
It's almost like we planned
Although
it.
LeMahieu was wasn't he always better away from Coors than at Coors? I might be making that
I
up.
have to go look. I mean, he's had some good moments with the Yankees, too. All right. This one should be good. 281, 351, 527. We ain't messing around with that stat line.
Nope.
145 WRC plus.
Brian Rocchio.
How did you know?
I'm going to say Jose Ramirez.
Jose Ramirez would be the correct choice. Also projecting him for 22 more home runs the rest of the season.
That would get him to second place. That would get him within 2 of his career high. Can he be the guy
285
finally to hit 40 home runs? No Cleveland hitter's done it since Travis Hafner in 2006. Even though I predicted Franmil Reyes for 9 consecutive years. I even wrote Josh Naylor was on pace for it a few weeks ago, and then he went down the tank. Hashtag Meisel Jinx. Can Jose Ramirez be the guy?
Could he be the guy? Wouldn't put it past him this year. 285, 350, 386. A 114 WRC plus for this man. rest of season projection courtesy of the bat. Who do they think
Kwan?
is going to be 14% better than league average? You got it. Stephen Kwan. Is he better than that? Do you think the projections have this wrong? Or are we just in the recency bias of seeing this guy hit 350 or whatever it was?
But
we just assume that's going to continue.
If he hits those marks the rest of the way, then his season average is probably winds up around like 305, maybe even 310. His on-base percentage winds up at like 370. Like that's an unbelievable hitter. You would have signed up for that in a heartbeat when the season started. So I don't want to sell him short. Like, he can do more than that. He already has. But if you added those projections to what he's already done this season, it's an incredible season.
We'll get another one easy out of the way since we already did Jose. I'm sure you can figure this one out. 283, 344, 504. A 139 WRC plus for
Josh Naylor.
Josh Naylor. You got it.
That's
yeah.
That's
okay,
encouraging.
Yeah, that's nice. Certainly, again, not complaining about that one. All right, this one's maybe interesting. 229, 291, 388. A 94 WRC plus for this man.
Bo Naylor.
Not Bo Naylor. Not Bo Naylor. Although, since we won't get to, I could just do this for all the players. Bo Naylor does also have a 94 WRC plus projected rest of season. But the slash line is 217, 296, 376.
I mean, those are almost identical. I'll go. Torn between two. How about Jonathan Rodriguez?
No, not Jonathan Rodriguez. This is Kyle Manzardo.
That's Manzardo. That's low.
That's Manzardo. That's the bat projection.
Hmm.
I mean, no matter which one you look at, I had seen some better ones, courtesy of some others. That's Kyle Manzardo. All right, a few more to get to. 266, 324, 409. 11% better than a league average hitter the rest of the way.
Andres Jimenez.
That's Andres Jimenez. You got it. And, yep, that's all the above average hitters that they project. So Ramirez, Naylor, Kwan, Jimenez, Fry, and Freeman would all be above average hitters. We've talked about Brennan. We talked about Manzardo. I gave you Naylor. Since we're dwindling here, I don't think we have to play this game with all of them. Jonathan Rodriguez, 90 WRC plus for him, projected rest of the way. Estevan Florial, 89 WRC plus the rest of the way. How far is that going to go? Who knows? Gabriel Arias, 88 WRC plus the rest of the way. Brian Arocchio, 84 WRC plus the rest of the way. Where do you think we're at with Rocchio here? It's not like Arias has stolen at-bats away from him. Rocchio just kind of keeps surviving, and hey, turned in a great defensive play today. The one going with his back to the infield, very Omar Vizquel-like.
My question is, what do they want to do? Like I said earlier, you can't be running experiments in August and September. Maybe you can run one, but you can't be just praying that these guys are going to start delivering when you're needing to win day in and day out, and then when you get to the playoffs. So I would think they'd want to see Jose Tena at some point. But you're not going to, if you're not going to give Rocchio till July or August and then be like, all right, now we'll try Tena. And you're just throwing him in the mix and expecting him to not sink in a crucial time. I mean, you could say the same thing about Juan Brito. So I don't know how much patience they can have, only because First of all, we should also mention Daniel Schneemann. I don't know like how he'd fit exactly, like what the role would be, but he should be up at some point. But do you need to see enough of these guys before the trade deadline so you know, like, oh, I guess maybe we should go trade for Bo Bichette because none of the 39 guys that we stockpiled for years are panning out right now. And maybe you go short term. Do you go rental at the trade deadline if you need someone who's proven, because then you can run it back with whoever next year? Angel Martinez maybe is part of that equation.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
I think the door opens up a little bit more when your record is what it is. And let's say this can, not maybe to this level, but say the record continues to be really good. Does that open the door more for short-term fixes here? Because it's not, yeah, you want someone that's going to be here for multiple years. But if this just looks like the year where it's all going good for you, doesn't that open up the possibilities to say, hey, let's float them the bone to see if that little bit extra here or there, even in the short term, proves worthwhile for a team that is putting themselves into a position where they could make some noise.
A lot of this depends on who's available and what you have to trade. Because someone like Tana, who the metrics look great, like I think he's going to be ready for an opportunity this year, but has he also boosted his trade value? Something you got to consider, and you got to weigh, like, is he more valuable to us or is he more valuable to someone else? And that answer is going to be different for every player and every potential trade partner. Other teams value these guys differently. So it's a weird situation to sort through, just because there are so many players, and I don't know what the best option is. And I don't know what the best time is to make a decision on who the best option is, because you could have other options available on the trade market. And yeah, I mean, I feel like you see it with, like, remember in 22, Nolan Jones was playing for them for like a decent stretch of time and then just disappeared. And it seemed like, okay, well, they'll just like bring him back in spring training and he'll be part of the competition. And, maybe he's an everyday player, a platoon guy, something, right? But he wasn't going to be part of that playoff run. And like, maybe that is the same thing here for Arias or Rocchio, or like, we'll have to see how it plays out the next 2 months. But maybe they have to go outside the organization to just address that in the interim and then recalibrate, reassess where they're at in the offseason. Which would be...
You're fighting two different battles here.
I mean, how ironic would that be, too, by the way?
Well, yes, but I don't think it has to mean that it's a failure, because I'm not seeing enough from Rocchio here where I'm doing some backflips down the street about his future. But he's not been so brutally bad that I don't think it's off the table that he's still going to be a good player. That's the thing with young players. It's we're going to come back to this conversation we have all the time. It's odd to marry what I'm trying to develop and also winning. It's hard to marry those at all times, because how can you look at what we've seen with Rocchio and just say, that's not the guy, moving on? How many guys' careers did it take 2-3 years before they start to take off? We all love Josh Naylor. He was not this Josh Naylor 2 years into his big league career. Not even close. We just talked about
this with Jose Ramirez 45 minutes ago.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's silly to say that Rocchio is going to be Jose Ramirez. What proof do we have of that? What sort of power did he showcase that is showing us he's going to be that? But I'm fighting two different battles here, because I want to be patient with him. I want to give him more time, because I think it takes time to develop at this level. And I think it's hard. I mean, when you're the shortstop too, this is a position where it's kind of like catcher. A lot is on you. It's why we're not screaming about Bo Naylor every single episode, despite the fact that he has not been great offensively. But unlike Zunino, where he was letting every single ball go back to the backstop and it was just terrible, Bo Naylor, to his credit, has graded well in framing, and like he's holding it together, and he's starters in and out here, and I'm sure he's leaning a lot on Austin Hedges. That's the reason why they brought him in. But Bo Naylor's doing enough, and I'm just, okay, we'll be fine here. Just get to the point of the season where you're going to finally take off. I think it's going to happen. We've seen it. So I think at some point it's going to happen. With Rocchio, I also want to be patient with him. But you're kind of right. I wonder, do you just fix it for now, and then you come back to this and say, okay, we're not going to let this play out a little bit more, because I don't want to just assume that it's over, that he's not the guy based on 2 months of the season? That just doesn't seem right.
That's why there's going to be more that goes into, like, if you're power ranking the needs at the trade deadline, I think there's nuance to this. Certainly it depends on the players that are available, the teams that are selling, and that's going to be really interesting to follow over the next 2 months. But it's what can you do internally in the short term and the long term versus what can you acquire who can help you in the short term versus the long term. You know, if you've got a starting pitcher you can acquire who has 2.5 years of control, like that's probably top of the priority list by a long shot, right? But if there's a rental shortstop who can help you, do you prioritize that above a shortstop who's got 1.5 years or 2.5 because you don't want to pay the extra price when you still want to see all your internal options in the middle infield? There's a lot of things to think through, but it should be fun. Like, that's better than should they be buyers and sellers? Should they capitalize on this person's trade value? Should they, I don't think there's any question on what they should do as of May 28th. And I also think, how poorly would they have to play for an extended period of time to change that? Because it's not like they have much to sell anyway. So even if they went in the tank, I don't know what you're doing at the trade deadline. I think regardless of what happens from here, you're looking at this as the start of something, or maybe the continuation of 2022 after a weird, awkward pause. But I think I think you should be on the aggressive no matter what happens. And so then you have to think through what's the best strategy to get all the information we need on our internal options before it's time to swing some trades.
But that's where it opens up the possibilities. Like I'm saying, I think you're right. There is really not a scenario here where they start selling off pieces, because there's probably not enough time for them to fall off that much that they're going to start taking away big parts of this roster, and there's just not a lot that really fits in there. It doesn't mean that it can't happen.
For Ben
Aaron
Lively?
Savali happened. Right, maybe. Maybe. We'll see what's happening there. But I think it opens up the possibility. Usually we go into the trade deadline, we're talking about who are these controllable guys, because that helps you for multiple years. And if he helps you enough in that given year where you're kind of teetering on the edge of contention, great. But then there's more years. It's the Ubaldo all over again. Maybe he'll help us win right now, but if not, we still think this team is on the edge here of building something, so this is going to help us for multiple years. But when you're in a position like the Guardians are in right now, and if this carries even remotely towards that trade deadline, yes, those trades are still on the table, but also so are the ones that help me just this year. As opposed to, well, we're kind of there, but we're kind of not, so why give up resources to chase something that might not be a thing? Well, if you're there, it's a thing. So now those rentals, you're in the conversation with them. You should be. Even if it's a rental starter, someone that's just a little bit better than league average. I've seen Luis Severino conversation here, who's pitching decently well with the Mets. Maybe that's the answer. There are multiple ways to help this team in the short term, too, that we don't always just have to be focusing on, well, who's the long-term answer, because we know they're not going to make a trade for somebody that's not going to be here for multiple years. That's maybe not true if you're continuing to be in this position.